this tutorial we'll be looking at variables. Now, variables are a method of storing a single data type within any programming language. In C#, they're declared slightly different to any other language you might have come before. The way we declare them is we first state off whether they are private or public. Private being they're going to be shared within the class, public being they can be shared throughout the code. We'll go out through this in later tutorials around classes. And then you declare what type of data they are, which we'll go through in a minute. And then you give them a name. So for example, we've got here a string, which is text and numbers called name. And we're going to call that variable John Doe. So there are many different data types available inside C#. The following ones are the probably most common ones. So the first type is a bool. A bool basically is a boolean, true or false, yes or no, used when you have a logical state as yes or no. So for example, if you've got one or two options. You've got int, which is short for integer. Now this is a data type which is a whole number, positive or negative, most often used for counting, and we'll be using this quite a bit in our loops and arrays. Next up, have our string, which is a combination of text, numbers, and any other special characters, most often used for when you have names. We next have our char, which is our character, which is for storing a single data type of any character. And then probably the next most common is a float, which is for anything positive, negative, which can be decimals or not. So very good for currencies or working out mathematical equations. So to start this tutorial, you'll need to start at the Visual Studio launcher screen. Remember, I'm using Visual Studio 2019, so yours might look slightly different. To start, we select Create a New Project. Remember, we're selecting the C# option. Make sure you give it a meaningful name, so I'm going to call it as variables, and save it to a location that you can remember. I'm going to select the Create button. Okay, so you should have seen this is a very common interface with the sample code that comes in from the previous tutorial, which was Hello World. So first up, we're going to look at the code for creating a variable. Okay, so we're going to look at two types of variables there. We're going to look at string and int. So remember, when you're writing code, it has to be inside a class. And this static void main basically just means that a class is not going to return anything. It's just going to let you write in anything inside there and display it. So the first thing when we're doing any type of variables, regardless of programming languages, you need to declare them first up. So we want to declare a string, so we just write string, and then we give it a name. So I'm going to call it name, and then you finish any line in C# with a semicolon. Then we want to declare a second variable, and I call it int, and we'll have it as called age. So we have two variables, one called a string, which is going to be a name, which can let special characters, text, or numbers in it. And then we have an integer variable called age, which lets us do a whole number. Okay, so next up, we're going to use the console writeline. Now this line of text basically will write to the console the text you put in there, which is please enter your name. Next up, we are then going to capture whatever the name will be. So we can actually manipulate variables by actually declaring the name of the variable and then saying, in this case, int pass. Okay, so what this line does here is that we have the variable name, and then anything that's entered into the console is going to be recorded to name. So if I put the name Peter in there, it will record as Peter. Next thing is that we want to enter the age in. So it's the same thing again, console writeline. And this time we're going to ask for an age. This time, however, we have slightly different code, and I'll explain in a minute. Okay, so you notice here that we have this integer pass. The reason for this is that we're working with consoles, and consoles only display strings, text to the screen. So what we need to do is, because this is a number, we need to pass the integer and convert it into a string. Okay, you don't need to know the reason behind it so much, but it's really important that when you're working with console programming with C#, that anything that's not a string needs to be passed, and we'll be looking at that in future tutorials. And finally, we want to connect this all together, and we want to say your name is name and your age is this. To do this, now you'll notice that I have to interrupt the double quotes to add in my variables. To do so is I use the plus, and I'll call it my variable name plus, and then I want to continue again by bringing my double quotes in again, and your age is, and then to finish it off, we need to put in our age. Okay, and just to finish it off, if we press play on this now, or F5, will prompt you to enter your name. So I'll put my name in, put your age in, okay, and then you can see right away that we have two variables, one called Peter, which is for name. You can put any name you want in there, and then your age, which I put my age in there, and then you can see the final one was your name is Peter and your age is 39. Now I suggest that you follow the PDFs attached to this YouTube tutorial, do the extension activities, and they will get you to practice using variables more. Thank you for watching this tutorial.